It was a quiet, overcast afternoon in Manhattan, the streets bustling with the usual energy, yet there was an air of exclusivity surrounding the high-end district. Inside one of the city's most luxurious boutiques, the clinking of glass and the soft murmurs of customers created a soothing ambience. The racks were filled with the finest designer dresses, handbags, and shoes, an experience that was reserved only for those who could afford the extravagance. Melania Trump, the former First Lady of the United States, walked into the boutique. She wasn't just any visitor, she was a woman who had lived a life full of public attention, but she preferred a quieter, more reserved existence after leaving the White House. Dressed in a sleek black dress with understated elegance, her presence was understated but still commanding. She knew what she wanted: a gift for a close friend's birthday, something that was both elegant and thoughtful. Her entrance, however, did not go unnoticed. The shop owner, a tall, well-dressed man named Anthony, stood behind the counter, busy organizing his collection of premium scarves. He barely looked up when she entered. The room was filled with high-profile clients, and Anthony, having dealt with celebrities and politicians before, didn't think much of another high-profile figure walking through his door. But he made a costly mistake by assuming. Melania began to browse the shelves, taking her time as she examined the items, her fingers grazing over the soft fabrics and smooth leather. She asked a few questions about a particular handbag she was interested in, and the sales assistant, a young woman, immediately started explaining its unique design. It was at that moment that Anthony looked up, his gaze landing on Melania. Without any recognition of who she was, he quickly turned to the sales assistant and waved his hand dismissively, signaling her to move aside. "Is she really here to buy? Or is she just browsing?" Anthony muttered under his breath, loud enough for Melania to hear. "I'm not in the business of wasting time on window shoppers." His words hung in the air, sharp and cutting. Melania's face remained impassive, but there was a flash of surprise in her eyes. She had dealt with public criticism in her life, but this was different. This wasn't about her husband or her role in the White House. This was a personal slight. She was no longer in the spotlight, and here she was, just another person walking into a shop, and yet the owner had treated her with dismissiveness and disdain. Without acknowledging the owner's behavior, Melania decided to continue with her selection. She had been accustomed to the ways of the rich and famous people, who often treated others with a sense of superiority. But there was something about Anthony's tone that struck a chord with her. Perhaps it was because it felt personal, a reflection of how people often underestimated her or reduced her to just her last name. The insult wasn't overt, but it was there. Anthony had no idea who he was speaking to, and when he realized who was standing before him, it was too late. As Melania carefully examined the item in front of her, her silence spoke volumes. It wasn't a matter of confrontation, it was simply a matter of dignity. She wasn't going to react in anger. Instead, she stood tall, allowing the moment to unfold in its own way. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Melania made her move. She walked towards Anthony, who was still preoccupied with his display, clearly unaware of the tension in the air. "Excuse me, I'm actually interested in purchasing this," she said calmly, her voice steady. There was no hint of anger in her tone, but her words held a subtle power. Anthony looked up, his eyes briefly widening in recognition as he saw the familiar face of Melania Trump. The realization hit him like a cold wave, and his smug expression faltered. The realization was clear in his eyes: he had just insulted one of the most recognizable women in the world. I'm sorry," he stammered, suddenly aware of the blunder he had made. "I didn't realize. You see, I thought—" Melania interrupted him, her demeanor still calm, but now there was an edge to her voice. "You assumed I wasn't serious about shopping. That assumption is disappointing." Anthony's face turned pale. The boutique, once filled with the gentle hum of conversation, had grown unnervingly quiet. The sales assistants, aware of the tension, exchanged glances. No one dared to speak up. Melania's gaze remained steady, unwavering, as she held Anthony's stare. There was no need for her to shout or escalate the situation. She had the ability to command attention without raising her voice. "Let me make one thing clear," she said. "Everyone deserves respect, no matter their background, wealth, or status. Your treatment of me today has been unacceptable." Before Anthony could respond, Melania turned on her heel, walking towards the door. Her exit wasn't dramatic or filled with indignation. It was simple, dignified, and final. But as the door clicked shut behind her, a murmur of disbelief spread through the store. No one could believe what had just transpired. Days passed after the incident, and the luxury boutique returned to its usual routine. The employees had all heard about the confrontation, but no one truly believed it would have any lasting consequences. After all, celebrities and high-profile individuals were often offended by trivial matters. Surely, Melania Trump wouldn't take this any further. But what no one expected was the return of the former First Lady. Melania had remained silent about the encounter, but deep inside, she had been formulating a plan, one that would not only address the insult, but remind Anthony of the importance of humility and respect. It was a week later when she walked back into the boutique. This time, her presence was unmistakable. She entered with the same quiet confidence, but her eyes were sharper, and there was a sense of purpose in her step. Anthony, standing behind the counter, froze when he saw her. Melania made her way to the same section where she had been previously. She took a moment to observe the merchandise again, just as she had before. Anthony watched from behind the counter, unsure of how to react. Was she here for revenge? Or was she truly just going to make another purchase? As she approached the counter, Melania smiled briefly at Anthony, though there was no warmth in it. "I'm here to make my purchase," she said calmly, the same way she had spoken the first time. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Anthony's palms grew sweaty as he realized the significance of this moment. He had a chance to redeem himself, but he had no idea how to make things right. "You know, I thought about what happened last time," Melania said, her voice soft, but carrying an unmistakable weight. "And I realized, I don't need an apology. What I need is for you to understand that how we treat others defines who we are. You don't need to be kind to someone because of their status. You need to be kind because it's the right thing to do." Anthony stood frozen, humbled by her words. He had expected an angry tirade or public shaming. Instead, Melania had come back to teach him something far more profound. Without another word, Melania made her purchase, her presence commanding the room even as she prepared to leave. But before stepping out, she turned back to Anthony, offering him a single, final piece of advice. "I hope that next time, you will remember that kindness costs nothing but means everything," she said, before walking out of the store once more. "I hope that next time, you will remember that kindness costs nothing but means everything," she said, before walking out of the store once more. As the door closed behind her, the staff stood frozen, unsure of how to react. The tension in the air seemed to linger long after Melania had left, and Sophia, though trying to maintain her composure, could feel the uncomfortable silence creeping in. She glanced at her staff, but no one dared to speak. They knew something was off. They had witnessed a powerful moment, a woman, dignified and graceful, leaving after being treated with disdain. Yet her words had carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. Back on the busy street, Melania's heels echoed as she walked away from the shop, her thoughts racing. She had experienced many challenges throughout her life, from the intense scrutiny of the public eye to being constantly judged by people who didn't understand her. But never had she been dismissed so coldly. It wasn't about the material things in the shop, or the name of the brand. It was the simple fact that she was treated with disrespect. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that this was just one small, fleeting moment in the grand scheme of things. Her journey was not defined by the judgment of others. But as she walked further down the street, something within her refused to let go of the encounter. Sophia, meanwhile, stood by the counter, her arms crossed as she gazed at the spot where Melania had stood moments earlier. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A sense of guilt began to creep in, but she pushed it away. She had built her reputation on hard work and exclusivity, and she wasn't about to let anyone, no matter who they were, make her feel small. But deep down, Sophia knew that her actions had been harsh. She had dismissed a person, someone who, despite the fame, had shown nothing but grace. And yet, she had still been cast aside by the very person who ran the establishment. The realization began to settle heavily on Sophia's chest, but she refused to acknowledge it. Not yet, anyway. As the days passed, Sophia continued running her luxury shop, but something had changed. The store, once buzzing with excitement, seemed quieter, less inviting. The luxurious items on display no longer felt as enticing. Instead, they seemed to symbolize something deeper, something cold and unapproachable. Sophia found herself standing in front of the mirror, scrutinizing her reflection, wondering if perhaps she had lost something far more valuable than material wealth. One fateful day, just over a week later, the bell above the door jingled again, signaling the arrival of a customer. This time, when Sophia looked up from behind the counter, she froze. There, standing in the doorway, was none other than Melania Trump. She walked in with the same confidence, but now there was a calmness to her demeanor that Sophia hadn't expected. Melania was no longer the woman who had been turned away. She was someone who had endured a moment of disrespect, but now she was standing there again, poised, unshaken, and holding something powerful in her presence. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the weight of the past encounter weighing on her shoulders. She stood up slowly, unsure of what to do or say. Melania, with a composed expression, met Sophia's gaze. "I hope you're doing well," she said, her voice steady but warm. "I wanted to come back not for myself, but for you." Sophia blinked, her mind spinning. She hadn't expected Melania to return, let alone approach her with such kindness. She had braced herself for confrontation, for anger, or perhaps even disdain. But none of that came. Instead, there was only understanding and calm. "I've been thinking about our last conversation," Melania continued. "I think you may have misunderstood me." Sophia was silent for a moment, the weight of her earlier actions crashing down on her. "I was rude," she finally admitted. "And I should have been better. I apologize, Melania. I allowed my pride to get in the way of being kind." Melania smiled softly. "It's okay," she said, her eyes reflecting empathy. "I didn't come here for an apology. I came because I wanted you to understand something. In this world, we can all get caught up in what we think matters: the labels, the status, the wealth. But what truly matters is kindness. It's what brings us all together." Sophia was taken aback. In her years of running the store, she had always prioritized exclusivity, wealth, and status. She had built an empire on those principles. Yet in that moment, standing face to face with Melania, she realized how hollow it all felt. She had been chasing the wrong things. Melania's presence seemed to shift the very energy in the room. There was no bitterness, no anger, just a simple truth that had eluded Sophia for so long. Sophia found herself genuinely listening for the first time, not as a business owner trying to protect her image, but as a person seeking something deeper. "I've been thinking about your words since the last time we spoke," Melania said. "And I realize that I can't let this moment go without saying something. I don't need anything from this shop. I don't need your apologies. But I hope that you can take a step back and see things differently, Sophia. It's not too late to change." Sophia blinked, her chest tightening. This woman, who had been mistreated by her, was offering something Sophia hadn't expected: an opportunity for growth, a chance to change for the better. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," Sophia murmured. "But I allowed my pride to define me. I've built this store on exclusivity and arrogance, and I see now how wrong that has been." Melania placed a hand on the counter, her eyes filled with kindness. "It's never too late to change. Sometimes, the most profound lessons come from the simplest encounters. I came back to show you that even in moments of hardship, we can choose kindness. We can choose to be better." Sophia's eyes began to well with tears. She had spent so many years building a reputation, but it had all been at the cost of her own happiness. She had lost sight of the simple, profound truths that mattered most. And here, in front of her, was a woman who had the grace to help her see that. With a deep breath, Sophia spoke. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to learn. I want to do better." Melania nodded, her smile gentle. "You already have." For the first time in a long while, Sophia felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had been given a gift, a second chance to make things right. The path ahead would be difficult, but she knew that it was one worth walking. The luxury shop, once a symbol of pride, was now a place where Sofia could rebuild not just her business, but herself. And as for Melania, she had not only returned to a shop that had once turned her away, but she had shown Sofia the power of compassion, forgiveness, and understanding. That simple act of kindness had changed both of their lives in ways that words could never fully capture. As Melania walked out of the store, a sense of peace enveloped her. She had not only made a difference in the life of a businesswoman, but she had also reminded herself of the importance of grace and forgiveness. What began as a cold, dismissive encounter had transformed into a heartwarming lesson in kindness, something that would stay with both Melania and Sofia for the rest of their lives. For Sofia, it was a turning point, a reminder that true success was not measured by wealth or status, but by the ability to connect with others, to show compassion, and to choose kindness above all else. And as she watched Melania disappear into the distance, she knew that her life and her business would never be the same again. This story is a powerful reminder that no matter how high we rise or how much we achieve, it's the way we treat others that leaves a lasting impact. Whether it's a simple gesture of kindness or a lesson learned through adversity, it's those moments that truly shape us and help us grow. Thank you for watching this heartfelt story. If this message of kindness touched your heart, please remember to like the video, subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire, and share it with your friends. Let's continue spreading the message that no matter who you are, kindness can change the world.